What's up, trainers? You're back with Jex, and today we're talking IVs. IVs are such a big topic of conversation about the game. You know, everyone keeps talking about, oh, I got the perfect such and such. So my aim for this video is to, for one, break it down, how IVs actually affect your Pokemon, how relevant they are, and hopefully clear up a few things and a few misconceptions on what it is. So I'm going to start with talking about what IVs are, how they affect your Pokemon, and pretty much why you should or shouldn't really worry about them. So let's get to it. IVs, or individual values, are three stats that every Pokemon has. So attack is obviously how much damage the Pokemon will deal in a fight or when defending a gym. Defense is how much it resists damage that it's receiving. And then HP is how much damage it can actually take before it faints. So to find out in game the stats for your Pokemon, they have the appraisal system in game. Now the appraisal system is not perfect. It cannot give you exact values of those three stats. So there's 4 different tiers of values for each team. And when you appraise it, your team leader, first of all, it will give you a broad statement. The first tier is from 0 to 48.9%. The second tier is 51% to 64. Then you've got 66 to 80. And then you've got 82 to 100. They're the overall arcs. I'll put a link down. Well, here is all the appraisal trees for your team. Now, the one that you should be looking out for is the one from the 80 to 100% or 82 to 100%. This will tell you if your Pokemon is in that top tier. Now, based on your numbers, if you have a Pokemon that has 15 attack, 11 defense, and 15 stamina, that is a 91 IV Pokemon. So this gives you a bit of an idea of how good your Pokemon can be based on this appraisal system. So the second thing to look out for is that when you're appraising it, it will give you a stat, or 2 stats, or 3 stats, as it being the best stat of that Pokemon. And if it says that it's the attack stat is the best, then you can refer to these listings here, and it will tell you if it's 15, 13 or 14, or 11, or so on and so forth. So once you get a Pokemon that you know is in that top tier, is in that 82 to 90%, you can also then see if it says attack is its best stat, you know that it's going to have, if it says that attack is 15 because it's using that top appraisal, you know it's going to have 15 attack. And so you can pretty much loosely base on what the other 2 values are going to be, whether they're, you know, a 15 attack Pokemon, if it's just like 10, 10, 15, it's still going to be pretty high up there. So using this appraisal system, we can quickly identify in game how good your Pokemon potentially is going to be on the IV scale. There are other tools that you can use online. GamePress, which I'll link down the bottom, has a calculator which you can input the Stardust requirement, the Pokemon, its level, all the stats that you can see, and the appraisal into it, and it will give you a lot better idea what IV that Pokemon is. So when you find these Pokemon in the wild, if you are level 30 or above, and you catch the Pokemon, and the person next to you is level 30 or above, they will actually have the same IVs. So if I catch a Larvitar, that's 15, 15, 15, a perfect Larvitar, and the person next to me is level 30, that Larvitar will also be perfect for them as well. This is obviously not the case when it goes to lower levels. So between the levels 1 and 29, the IVs are actually different for each of those levels leading up to level 30. So I've had it happen before where the player next to me has caught a perfect Pokemon, a perfect Machop, that was 15, 15, 15, so it's best possible Machop. And I was really excited because I got to, you know, I go to tap it, I catch it, and it's not. Turns out the other player was only level 23. So Technically, if there was another level 23 player in the area, they could have caught that Machop and it would have had the same perfect stats. But for everyone level 30 plus, it's not the same IVs. So if anyone is still building up and, you know, not level 30 yet, if you catch a perfect Pokemon or a really good Pokemon, please mention that what level you are when you caught it beforehand. So we now have the defining values of what these stats do and how they affect this IV range and how we can find out about it. Now, the interesting thing when it comes down to IVs is that it doesn't actually change a great deal. So these three stats, so 15, 15, 15, get added to the Pokemon's base stats. And that's part of the damage calculation for it, or how much damage it can receive and how much health it's got. So when you get more powerful Pokemon, because it's adding the numbers to it, it doesn't actually make as much of a difference. I'll explain. So Tyranitar is a perfect example. Tyranitar has been this massive beast in combat for so long. It's the strongest dark attacker. Pretty much overall. Gen 4 has introduced a new one, but Tyranitar is like one of the best Pokemon in the game. Now, Tyranitar has a base attack value of 251. Its stamina is 200 and its defense is 212. Now, if you have a perfect Tyranitar, it will add 15 to each of these numbers, and that will give you its overall, how good it is, really. But because they're such large numbers, with an attack stat of 250, when you add 15 onto the end of that, it only goes up to 266. Not a huge difference from 251. And obviously the same goes for its HP and stamina. When you break this down to its combat viability, it's such a small difference with its damage output. So when you have a Tyranitar with 15 attack, its attack stat is going up to 266. And a Tyranitar with 0 attack stat is still 251. So if the actual damage difference between that, a Tyranitar with 0 attack deals about 95% of the same damage as a Tyranitar with 15 attack is. Now, that's not saying don't go out there and max power your 0 attack Tyranitars, but it means that when you're looking at a Tyranitar that's got 15 attack and a Tyranitar that's got 13 attack, it's so close, the two differences, that it doesn't make a huge amount of difference. Now, furthermore, if we're going to go full nerd here, there are so many calculations which does rounding and shaving off all these numbers. When you power up your Pokemon to a certain point, it will no longer actually deal any extra damage. So there's a great website that we can use for this, and I'm going to link it down in the bottom. So what this website allows us to do is that we can actually put in the attack stat of our Tyranitar. We have to use what Pokemon it's versing. So for this example, I've got Tyranitar versus Alakazam, because that is something that you might want to actually power up to be able to do it yourself, to solo this raid boss. So you can see here that with 15 attack, when you power it up to level 32.5, now remember, whenever you power up, it only goes up half a level. So if you hatch a Larvitar or catch it as a raid boss, to get from 20 to 32.5, it's 12.5 levels, so that's powering up 25 times. So you can see here at level 32.5, it deals 96.7% of the damage output as what it would do at level 40. That's massive. You don't need to power it all the way up to level 40 to max power to get such a huge damage output on your Tyranitar. Now, this is where it gets really interesting. We have a Tyranitar that's got 13 attack. With 13 attack, you have to power it up to level 33.5, which is only 2 levels higher, 27 power-ups. And it's dealing the same damage as our 15 attack Tyranitar, with only powering up twice. So this this kind of thing to remember and take note of is that your Pokemon don't need to be perfect to be able to deal enough damage. The thing I want to end on is that everyone plays the game differently. Now, I understand that some players just want to have the highest CP Pokemon and then power it up. So just evolve it. There's nothing wrong with that. If you're, you know, taking down gyms by yourself, you don't need to have perfect Pokemon to take down a gym. Heck, even with this demotivation system in the gyms, it's super easy to take out gyms now. If you're always raiding in big groups to take on legendary or EX bosses, you don't need to have the best team. But it's always nice to contribute a little bit. But I understand as well, there's the other side where people want to have the best Pokemon, the perfect Pokemon. And look, I'll admit, you know what? I'll be the first to admit, my goal is to get a perfect Pokemon of every family in the game. But from a damage output perspective, I don't need to. Like, I've got so much Stardust and so much resources at the moment because I don't feel compelled to invest all these resources into powering up these Pokemon. I power up things because I find it funny, and that's because I have Stardust to spend, and I feel like it. So, I understand when people get really annoyed at other players because they've invested dust and resources into powering up these Pokemon, but I want everyone to remember that it doesn't actually make a huge difference within the game, especially depending on how you play. It might even make no difference to how you're playing the game. But that is the breakdown of what IVs are. So remember, it's 3 stats. Even if you're a casual player and you're looking at 2 different Pokemon, and one's got low IVs and high CP, and one's got high IVs and low CP, just take a quick second, think how you play, and if you just fight gyms and casually, you know, raid every now and then with groups, by all means, evolve your high CP, low IV. Nothing wrong with that. But if you're someone that wants to start, you know, soloing gyms or gym efficiency or all these, you know, raid challenges where you're, you know, beating certain times, or even just wanting to do solo raid challenges, you need to be looking at these IVs, not the perfect ones as we went through, but the higher IVs, so you can power up those Pokemon more. Please keep that in mind when you're looking at IVs. I can't stand when people put other people down because they've invested dust in something that's useless. It's their game. They can do whatever they want with their resources. And if you're not sure, ask. But that's the IV breakdown. I was going to do a video on Gen 4 attackers, but there is already another video out there from Nick Trainer Tips, who covers it very well using GamePress website on what the best attackers are now of each type in Generation 4. So I'll link that down below. It's a little bit long, but it's definitely worth a watch so you know where to place your dust. Next video, I'm going to do another dive video on one of the other aspects in the game. If there's something that you want to know more about, feel free, comment in below. Something that you're not sure about or you just want a bit of extra knowledge on. But other than that, thanks for watching. Really appreciate it, and I'll see you next time.